Welcome. This is Dad Mentality. I am Rodney Glover. I'm your host. So we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves. So that's all. You'll definitely learn more about us as this podcast goes on. I'm grateful that I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what we're getting ready to get into and what we're going to start. The thing is, I've been blessed with a lot of friends that all are great men and dads. But I found that we don't talk to each other enough.
There is a difference between being a good man and being good at being a man.
Cleo, he was about all these motorcycles, all these cars, everything I can think of,
I wouldn't change a thing. Like some things you look at, be like, wow. But honestly, man, I wouldn't change it. We experience and those things, ultimately make us who we are. That's what I believe. Like.
Hello. Welcome to Dad Mentality. I am your host. This is Rodney Glover, aka the Beast One. I'm glad to be here again for another episode this week. I've also don't do this by myself. I got my man since I was 4 years old with me, Vance Robs, aka Coach. How you doing, Vance?
I'm doing good. How y'all?
Man, doing good today, brother. Doing good today. So we got a good episode planned for y'all this week. I got a couple co-hosts as we talk about PTSD. It was something that I definitely wanted to bring on the show because I feel we don't talk about this enough as a community and as men and as a culture. So I called in a few what I would call my heavy duty co-host, and especially about any kind of subject about mental health and this, that, and the other. So let's start with, he's been with us before. He's currently writing a book called The Things We Don't Talk About. Hopefully we'll get an update about the book and see what that is. But y'all remember he was here for our show, The Way I Am, talking about mental health and self-care. He is Sergeant Jamel Garrett. How you doing, Sergeant Garrett?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm doing good and can't complain.
You know what? I apologize. He is retired Sergeant Jamel Garrett. So yeah, just he's retired recently, and I guess how's retired life treating you?
Oh man, it's lovely. It's making me spoiled, or I don't want to go back to work.
He ain't doing nothing. All he doing is sitting out on this porch like he is right now.
Yeah, fresh balcony and everything. Sitting out there,
see it, right?
Yeah. He was like, I don't even want to be in the house no more. Let me get out of this balcony. But anyway, I also called in another one of I called him a hired gun, I guess, when it comes to topics and things, especially something like this, because this gentleman is a chief in the U.S. Army. He's done 22 years. He is soon to retire, I think this March. And when is it? Yeah, March?
December.
No.
Yeah.
December?
No, I hit terminal leave in December. I'm out the Army officially in March.
Okay.
They still got to pay me for another 90 days. So,
don't cut you them 90 days.
Hold on. Let me finish my intro. So, he's been to Germany, Italy. He's done two deployments in Afghanistan, a deployment in Iraq. He's currently a capability developer for the Army. So I guess he gets to test all the cool stuff and shoot it first or aim it first or drive it first because he's been doing everything there so that he could. I know he also part-time teaches and helps develop a lot of people, men, adult, women in his community. He's been my friend since I think we was probably around 14 years old, all from the Beechwood crew. Shout out to the Beechwood crew. But it's Chief James Ayler, aka Jimmy. What's up, Jimmy? How you doing, sir?
What's up, good people, man? I'm doing great. Like I said, real close to terminal leave. Just enjoying life. And in the summer, daughter going to college, so that's a new thing. So, other than that, man, just getting ready for this transition. yeah, like you said, teaching at the community college, doing different things. So just trying to stay flexible, trying to stay relevant, trying to get ready to mentally transition, and happy to be here to be part of the team.
Yeah, you can definitely reach out to Sergeant Garrett. It looks like he's soaking in that retired life as quickly as possible. So we're gonna get on to that later. But let's start with what we do every week, which is Twitch mental health check-in, where we rate our week from 0 to 10 and talk about how we're doing and where we're at. I'm gonna go ahead and start first. This week was a little challenging this week, but you know what? I just had a conversation with Chief Jimmy here, and he was talking about resiliency. And you know what? And it really hit me to my heart because resiliency is what defines a lot of things in my life. Because I've been hit left and right by a lot of things and even this show today, we had a couple of hiccups, which I quickly got solved, and everybody definitely helped me out and understood that we're all here to help one pass. So, you know what? I started off the week with a very low score. My son had his track meet today that excelled my score, and then excited about the show today is excelling my score. So I would say right now I'm sitting at a solid 8.5. I probably feel even better after the show's done and the happiness of knowing that a good show's done. So I'm about 8.5. Vance, you want to go ahead and give your score next?
Yeah, man. The last week or so has been, it's been a pretty decent week, for the most part. As usual, this is a busy time of the year for work. So got a couple major things going on that are kind of like I've been telling y'all over the last couple weeks coming to a close. Probably this week or next. So good thing. Had a nephew graduate high school, which was great on Friday. You know what I mean? Saw a bunch of my football players graduate that day as well. So that was tremendous. I did have a death in the family though this weekend. So
sorry to hear that, brother.
It's gonna be a tough one to swallow. You know what I mean? I think the family is still processing it right now. I don't know that it was unexpected, but it was definitely too soon. You know what I mean? So that's something that's been weighing me the last, I say 2 days. But overall, I mean, I would say 7.5, 8 is about where I'm at right now. With everything that's going on. I mean, you got your joys and then you got your sadness, that's taking place this week. So, but overall, that resiliency definitely is a good word to use for anybody, when they're going throughout their week. So I appreciate that, definitely.
Yeah, excellent. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go to Sergeant Garrett. How you doing, Sergeant Garrett? Tell us about this beautiful retired life you live in.
Man, look, I'm getting lazy and don't want to go back to work. I would say my week has been a solid 8.5. So I've been working on my resume this week, and I haven't written a resume in about 16 years. So because every job I've had in the military, my resume was my evals, my annual evaluations. They would just look at those and determine whether I would get a job or an award or whatnot. So this is a little bit different for me, but it's just learning to switch your mindset from what you've been doing for 20 years to essentially you're doing the same thing. You're just speaking another language. You just have to learn that language. So that's my mental health talk. That's my self-talk that I'm telling myself to make it a little bit easier. But it ended on a bang. My son went to his 8th grade formal, looking clean. Black suit, white shirt with the white Air Force Ones on. Man, he was killing it.
Okay.
So that really made me feel good. And
good stuff.
He's hitting that transition time where he's leaving middle school now. The game is getting real now because he's in high school. So I'm actually really glad that I'm retired, so I get to be there with him to help him through that stage of development. So I'm about a solid 8.5.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad to hear that, man. Yeah, man, I remember those days at that state right there. Because I remember I was psyched. I grew 6 inches that summer between eighth and ninth grade. So when I got in the ninth grade, they didn't even know who I was. It was like, hey, dog. So especially the girls started looking at me different because I used to hold the little picture at the front of the class because I was always the shortest person in the class. And then ninth grade, boy, I shot up. I was psyched. So I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. All right. What about you, Jimmy? How you feeling this week?
Man, you already know, man. I'm on 10, bro, because and I'll be honest, I'm not sure if you all have ever had outside family live with you for whatever reason, short period, long period. But my mother-in-law was living with us since like September, bro. And she was going through a lot of medical stuff. And in all honesty, if she hadn't came up from Georgia when she did, she probably wouldn't be here now. So my wife brought her up, got her situated. VCU has an amazing medical team down at the Massey Cancer Center. They did a great job with her, getting her back on track, getting her on chemos. But the relationship between my wife and her mom has never been good, which was one of the reasons why my wife went in the military, which is the reason why I met my wife. So I can't be too upset about that. But just speaking realistically, it's like, man, for months, just constantly talking about like, hey man, you gotta fix this relationship with your wife, with your mom, because it's impacting our kids, it's impacting me. But we gonna be here. But at the end of the day, we're upset because you're upset. Long story short, um, they were able to come to a cordial agreement that it was time for her to go back to Georgia, where she had more family support. 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and a son in the state, this town where she's from, instead of up here with us. I think we got her back where she needed to be. She was able to go home. Everybody's happy. They're not no bad blood. And we have our house back, and my wife, really from September last year to just this last week, man, she was still in the same spot, not speaking, not to take this as a negative way on women, but women love to have their New Year's resolutions, man. And all my wife's New Year's resolutions stopped, when that happened. So she was really excited about going into January 2023, about doing all this new stuff, and she just wasn't able to do it. So I'm on 10 right now. I'm really excited. My wife is happy. Her mom is even happy, just being back in Georgia. My daughter graduated. She's getting ready to go to Virginia Tech. My son hasn't brought a B home on a report card in 2 years. He's playing the baritone sax and breaking all stereotypes within his school and within the community. So I'm super excited, man. I got nothing to complain about. So I mean, I'm on 10, bro. And if the number was higher, I'd take it. But I also know that when you having a good time and you floating up here, it's gonna come down. So I'm ready. Whenever it come down, I'll be ready for it.
Absolutely. You got it. Yeah, it definitely happens. And you got to be able to ride that, life is hills and valleys, it's hills and valleys. So you got to be able to ride through that valley, and you hope that, as long as you keep your mental focus on the good times and things like that, and know that nothing lasts forever. It's going to end, nothing's lasts forever, even with, having family come. Eventually they're going to go home. Eventually it's got to end. So, I'm glad to hear that, brother.
Every surfer fall off their surfboard. That's whether they're gonna get back on that surfboard or not. You know what I'm saying? You either a surfer or you not. What you gonna do?
There you go. Absolutely. So, fellas, PTSD has always been a topic that I wanted to discuss on our show. And I mean, I've done some research. I'm glad I have an expert on here. So I want to Sergeant Garrett, if you could start us off by just giving us what is like the clinical definition of PTSD, or what is what is it considered?
So PTSD is a trauma disorder. So it used to be labeled an anxiety disorder under the DSM-4, but in 2000 and I think it was 2015, somewhere in there, it got reclassified into its own category. And so it's considered, a trauma disorder. And pretty much what it is psychological impact. So impacting your behaviors, your mood, your overall well-being as a result of some traumatic experience or some experience that was traumatic for you or life threatening or anything that was really impactful. So for most people, they'll get over it without having symptoms over the course of about a month. You start looking at PTSD as a diagnosis for people when you go beyond 30 days. In fact, a precursor to PTSD is something called acute stress disorder. Acute stress pretty much lasts for 30 days. Beyond that, you start looking at what we know as PTSD.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Got it.
important thing is something that, you know, not everybody faces. The vast majority of people who experience some event, they will have some level of normal functionality after about a month. You start looking at PTSD after that month.
So what I, just doing the research that I've come up, what I've found is most people associate PTSD with the military or you've been in some type of war zone. Is PTSD something that is only that kind of issue, or can a regular person just like had some type of trauma in their childhood or some type of trauma during, their growing up that may, like if you lived in a bad neighborhood where gunshots were all the time, is it just a military thing or is it more than just that?
Oh, it is more than just that. It is a society thing. So anyone who experiences any kind of life-threatening situation can experience PTSD. The experiences that you were just talking about, those are called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. People who experience ACEs are more likely to actually come down with PTSD in the future in their adult life. So basically what you were just describing, that puts you in a category where you're more likely to actually experience PTSD as an adult.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, I know it's a lot of people did associate it with the military, but I mean, it could be anything as small as, you know what I'm saying, getting in a really bad car accident.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that triggering how you drive the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Some people are scared to drive. Some people are scared to ride with people, and so forth. You guys, some of you guys know I'm part of a bike club. And I mean, I dropped my bike in the rain on a major highway. And for 2 or 3 years, I was scared to go downhill on a bike.
Mhm.
You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I've seen people get hit by, I had friends that have gotten hit by cars on bikes that were scared to ride again. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no,
those,
I'm with you. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So, and it's good that we have to make that separation between the two because, especially like say, the military, especially after 9/11 and with Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's we got all these soldiers, got to take care of our veterans. They all got PTSD, we got all the bad images. And obviously, society wants to do a better job than what they did with those soldiers who came back from Vietnam. When they just called them shell shocked and a lot of them was coming back with substance abuse issues because of the opium that was over there. But you're right, man. I mean, shoot, I grew up in Forest Heights, man, in the 90s between Forest Heights and Temple Hills. And I mean, shoot, man, we lost 5 dudes in Forest Heights in the span of like a year and a half between 94 and 95. I want to say we lost 5 dudes, man, like at the liquor store, at the police shot this guy, this girl got hit by a bus, this happened. It was a lot, bro. And it was like, man, what am I doing? I'm in the 10th grade. Like, you looking weird at everything that's happening. You moving different. It impacted, the way a lot of us moved back then. It made some of us worse, than what we were. And it made some of us kind of think 3-4 times about what we was doing. And that happened all around me, specifically in PG County and on the south side of DC,
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I don't feel I've had long term, but I've definitely had some short term things especially when you witnessed or seen something traumatic in your lifetime. And so let me ask you a question, Jimmy. When you went into the military, did you feel like you were getting away from that type of thing, or do you feel that it increased when you got there, or how did you feel when you first got into the military?
It's a great question, man. Honestly, bro, when I left, I was running from myself, bro. I was stuck between so many different rocks and hard places and decisions that had me in very precarious situations. Um, and I think that I was on the verge of making a very adult decision in between all of my very juvenile decisions. But I was, I was thinking about getting a townhouse, having my sister come into the townhouse and my dad come into the townhouse, and but I was out looking at places, just on the job that I had and the different things I was doing to generate income at the time. And I was out looking at stuff with real estate agents, man. I kind of came to a conclusion, man, after going and seeing about 6 or 7 different places, man. I was like, man, if I do this, I'm gonna be married to this property. I'm gonna be married to paying the bills. I'm gonna be married to, which means I'm gonna be married to the community that I move in. And I couldn't afford nothing but stuff in PG County. And I was like, man, I can't do this. If I do this, I'm never gonna leave. I'm not gonna do this and then turn around and go in the military later. So and I didn't join until 2 years after. I always told myself, give me 2 years. I took my ASVAB in high school, did pretty well, and recruiter was like, hey man, your test score is good for 2 years. I said, bet, I'll see you in 19 months. Let me go try it my way first. I went back to him at the 19-month mark. I said, hey man, my score is still good. He's like, yeah, you still got. I said, all right, give me about 3 more months to figure it out. And I ended up joining before it expired. But no, I really didn't. At that point in my life, I didn't really care what the military was going to test me with, because I didn't know. I just looked at people that made it, and I was like, I'm at least as tough as them. And that was really my only conclusion. But I was running from myself and the stuff that I got myself into.
Okay. All right.
The military
BTS
tends to do that too. It tends to be that escape, for a lot of people. But one of the things I'm glad about is it gives people a chance, if they take the opportunity, to work on themselves and look at those things like trauma. Working, especially, I really discovered this when I did mental health work in the prison, at the prison down, the DOD prison down in Charleston. So many people join with those adverse childhood experiences that impact them, and they make god awful decisions that lead them into jail. But they get an opportunity to work on those things, so that's good.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, because I don't know which way this might lead the conversation, but the worst part about it was, 3 months after I got out of basic training and got to my unit, and I'm actually in the Army for 3 months in private ALOR and doing what I'm told and being where I'm supposed to be. 9/11 happens, and 30 days later, I'm in Afghanistan. So, all the stuff I ran away from, I ended up running into a brand new monster. But, the blessing in all of that was, man, I'm telling you, I told myself when I joined, I'm doing 4 years, I'm getting out. Within 30 days of being in Afghanistan, and, I was a tow truck driver and mechanic at the same time. Within 30 days, I said, I'm not getting out. Like, there's no way I'm getting out. I love this. I'm good at it. I'm gonna do this until they don't want me no more. So I actually found a home. I found what I was looking for, and I didn't even know that was where it was at.
Good stuff.
Nice.
You didn't know what you needed till you needed it, until you found
you got
it.
it. Exactly.
All right. So post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, some of the things I looked at, they talked about what was called the flight, fight, or freeze. Is that something that they still associated with, or can you break down what that fight, flight, or freeze is?
Yeah, so that's not just associated with PTSD. Fight, flight, or freeze are typical responses to, the old cliche saying is normal responses to abnormal situations. You either run from it, which is the flight. You either fight it, like if your life depends on it or whatever, then you're gonna try and fight your way out, or you just freeze, where you don't know what to do. So that's where that comes from, and that's not necessarily just because you have that response doesn't mean you necessarily have PTSD. That's like a normal human reaction to those kind of
trauma situations.
Yeah, those situations you don't really find yourselves in. Hopefully, you don't find yourselves in every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One of the other things when I looked at they talked about was the 4 basic things of PTSD. And like I said, I'm no doctor. I just looked on the internet, and who knows if whatever you read on the internet is correct. I mean, if that's that case, if that was the case, I was always sick when I got all kinds of issues with this, that, and other. But it said one of the main things is
No, I was just gonna say, remember when we used to have encyclopedias, and if you had that one friend that had a whole set, and you thought they was rich, like that was our
One
internet
friend.
back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you was
I
lucky,
had
Those
if you was lucky, you had
encyclopedias ran through
I had
all the
that
black
set.
communities. Yeah.
right,
Yep.
right.
Britannica,
One
I
lady at
think.
the end
The
of
Britannica.
Yeah.
That's
one
exactly what
lady
it was.
one lady at the end of the block had a set of encyclopedias. You had to go ask her, "Can you do your homework in her house?"
Yeah.
Nah, I definitely had a set in my basement. I remember them joints vividly. But yeah, so number one being painful thoughts, like you would have reoccurring thoughts about whatever happened, dreams, things like that.
Yeah, intrusive thoughts. Yeah, there's definitely a hallmark of it. Yeah, intrusive thoughts or
Yeah.
memories about the event that happened. The key is those have to be intrusive and involuntary, like they just pop up. Normally, those happen when something tied to your senses reminds you of the event. So, a common one dealing with like military trauma, for example, blast victims and IEDs and explosions. I've worked with people who were quote triggered by those intrusive thoughts whenever they were at a barbecue, and it's kind of dark, but like the smell of meat cooking is
Wow.
something that would trigger
Mm.
that. Because PTSD is one of those things that it really affects your amygdala and hippocampus. So that's where the emotions and kind of memories are there, they're stored. So when those events happen, what your brain at a pretty much basic emotional level, they call it our lizard brain, at a like evolutionary level, we don't remember it with our prefrontal cortex. We remember it in our amygdala. So a sight, a sound, a smell, like those are the things that trigger those intrusive thoughts.
They're like fireworks or something like that. to trigger
Exactly.
war memories or something
Yeah,
of
that
nature. I used
happened
to
to
have a
me.
coach that did that.
Yeah, that happened to me. Like I was Air Force Security Forces for the first 7 years of my career, and I deployed twice to Iraq before I cross trained into mental health and deployed 3 more times. But we had mortar and rocket attacks all the time, and then the next 4th of July, people shooting fireworks. I didn't even know, and then you got to keep. I'm like 21 at the time. I don't know what's going on.
Mm.
But fireworks are going off because people are shooting fireworks. That's what we do, and like I'm super anxious. Like I can't sleep. I'm a little jittery, and I just always remember it's like 2 o'clock in the morning because I never could go back to sleep. I'm watching the Batman cartoon on the Cartoon Network.
The
and
power
just-
one, not the old school one, not the old school where it said Power Cross. You talking about real?
Nah, him.
yeah,
Nah,
the
he ain't
one from the
watching no
90s.
Adam West.
Yeah, no, not that one.
No,
He ain't
no,
watching Adam
Shadow.
West. He ain't
Yeah, the
watching
one
that's
from
that
the
Nick at
'nineties.
Night.
Yeah,
That's
the
that
one
Nick
from
at
the
Night.
90s.
That's that 4B.
He talking about the actual cartoon with
Yeah.
Robin and all that on it.
Yeah, man, and like-
Switchbox. You gotta put on the B channel.
Yeah, I just it's look, that 1992 Emmy winning Batman animated series is what I was watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But like
Okay.
I couldn't sleep, and like I just remember thinking at that moment as I'm sitting in the chair in my underwear, like, what am I doing? Like, what is
Mm.
going on? So yeah, it's
Nah,
a thing,
man.
it happens.
Don't feel bad, bro. I'm the same way. So I know Rod said 2 deployments. So I've been in Afghanistan 4 times, Iraq once, man. So I was
Yeah.
in Afghanistan driving my Hemet Record, which is an 8-wheel recovery vehicle. You can tow up to 120,000 pounds if you know what you're doing.
Oh
And
yeah.
man, that first year, man, I think I drove about 40 or 50,000 miles, and that's a lot for a military vehicle. You might think about your
Yeah.
car, like in a year, you do put on about, however many
Mhm.
miles, 30,
Mhm.
40, 50,000 miles,
It's
man,
a
running
lot.
back and forth from Bagram to Kandahar to Kabul to Bagram to
Yep.
Kandahar to Kabul. And, the whole thing, because back then in 01, 02, it wasn't even like we were taught about, UXO, but IEDs really didn't come into 05.
Right.
Late 04, 05. But
Mhm.
even still, it was like, hey, don't drive in the pothole. Don't do this. Don't do that. So, and then, all the other deployments after that, all the way into 2013, 14, and 15, dude, I can't drive down the road and there's a box in the road. Man,
Wow.
I'm swerving it.
Yep.
I mean, like
Yep.
there's no
Yeah.
way I'm driving over a dead carcass, unless it's a squirrel. Anything bigger than a squirrel, a box, something blowing in the wind,
Mm-hmm.
the spidey senses immediately go off. I mean, I've had to deal with it long enough where I'm cool. Like, well, as soon as I came back from deployment, man, I slammed on brakes in the middle of the road down in Georgia because it's a box in the road. Man, come on, man, ain't nobody putting no bombs in the road in Richmond Hill, Georgia. But my head wouldn't tell me that.
Hey,
Yep. Your
My
head was
head
back
wouldn't
there.
let me. Yeah, my head was still back there,
Yep.
and unfortunately, and I'm sure we'll get there, but unfortunately, most of us, especially the young guys, we medicate that with alcohol,
Yep.
and I'll glorify it in the military, regardless of how they advertise it, it's part of our culture. So we medicate that with alcohol, and then you put alcohol with a lot of these mental health issues, man. It doesn't make it better. And I'm learning that now as an older guy who can't drink as much. I'm not around people as much. So, but yeah, I'll digress. But yeah, it's heavy. It get heavy, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
So now, well, since you brought it up, I would like to talk about it more. So so alcohol, I'm assuming, is probably one of the top things that people do to try to deal with it. Can you tell me, well, first let me go ahead and go through the rest of these explanations, just explaining PTSD, and then we can start talking about treatment and things like that. So the other thing they talked about was intense emotions, which, I mean, we kind of got into that as well when they say that sometimes like things can trigger, like you were saying, intense emotions, like for instance, a box in the road or as much as fireworks going off or things like that. Then another thing they talk about is bodily changes, was what they put on there, and behavioral changes, which to me, I think they kind of go together as far as I can understand your changes in behavior, but what are like some of those most common things that you've seen about bodily change or behavioral change as far as associated with PTSD or just trauma in general?
So
Garrett.
it's actually really interesting. It can look so many different ways depending on the person. So it's actually not uncommon for sexual assault survivors to become sexually promiscuous afterwards. That's a symptom of trauma. And what that is that's control. See, I didn't have control when this thing happened to me, but
now I control
so
it.
now I can control it. That's some of the behavior changes that I've seen, in working with military communities. What you see a lot of, you probably yep, that's that fire department. They responded to a car accident.
You did. I don't even hear him right now.
Hey, well, I'll go ahead and
Go
hop
ahead.
on while he muted that up. So,
All right.
I mean, I'll give you one, man. Like, I can't do crowds, man, at
Yep.
all. Like
Okay.
Rodney, you already know, man. Back in the day, when I was leading the snake through the ice box. You know what I'm saying? We was gonna make our way to the front, whether it was the ice box, the Ibex, the Safari Club, whatever it was. I could do the crowds, the go-go's, outside, inside. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it no more. I mean, because one, it's a lot going on in America. That's a whole other podcast. But I just can't do crowds, man. Like my daughter graduated, man. They graduated in the arena at HBU. And it was a nice, cool day, man. I got on a suit, I'm looking clean, trying to, got the school colors on. And for some reason, they had no organization when they let them out. They just kind of let them out. There's one little tunnel, and they had everybody kind of in the front of a little courtyard. Man, there's got to be 2,000 people out there. And I felt like I was back in Afghanistan trying to clear a crowd, at the bazaar, so that we can get our vehicles through. And I'm sitting there looking at everybody. And then one second I'm thinking that, the next second I'm thinking I'm back in the club, like in the go-go or something. I mean, like that's how I'm literally moving through the crowd. I done left my family and told them, hey, meet me at the stop sign by where we park, go to the subway, make a left, don't come, I'm giving all these kind of instructions and stuff, man. Like, my kids messing me. They say I'm one of the parents on that insurance commercial because I be thinking about how we gonna leave before we even get there.
He done planned out 3 different routes of exit.
Yeah.
That's how we were taught growing up.
You got to know your egress route.
We were taught how to get out, right? So when you get there, learn how to get out.
So, and that's something that really, when you talk about trauma, think about that. Like we all were taught, hey, mind your surroundings. Like I find myself, I was in a situation a couple weeks ago where I was telling my son, like, hey, Do you see, like, look at these people around you, like, look who's
Mhm.
looking at you, look at who's doing this. Like, think about the generational trauma that we have experienced in
Mhm.
this country that gets passed down because of
Nah,
that.
straight up, man. Because I mean, my kids are so my daughter is 17, about to be 18. My son's 16. They went through their preteen years, like those early teen years over in Italy. You know, going to DoD schools and missed
Mhm.
the entire, American childhood nightmare kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
So when we came back to the States, we was in Illinois, 'cause we was only out there for a year, so they was protected again. And we came back here to the East Coast, it was COVID. So it was like,
Okay.
they were like, hold on, now it's all super weird. So as soon as I got a chance, I took them back home. I took them to DC because they not from DC. They
Yeah.
best kids in the
Had
world.
no
They'll know
idea.
nothing. No idea.
No
Man, I took
clue.
them up on
Of no surroundings or nothing. They walking
Yeah.
around that joint free willing.
La da da.
look, took them on the south side to MLK and was like, get out, look around. What do you see? Uncomfortable. But and it wasn't to punish them or anything like that. And it's not to speak negatively on anybody who's still in that community. It's just that you need to understand that, the sacrifices that your mom and I have made was to protect you so that you don't have to go through some of the traumas that we went through. My
Mhm.
wife is from deep South Georgia, where I don't think she wore shoes until she was probably 7 years old. Where they
Wow.
play in the dirt, they got grass,
Dirt roads,
trailers.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they riding 4-wheelers at 6, 7 years old. It's a different kind, but at the same time, they got a different type of trauma down there. Well, who you could talk to, who you can look at,
Yeah.
who you can't
And
look
what
at.
neighborhood
Yeah.
you can
Those
go
types
in,
of
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
got to do
What
with
city?
skin color,
What
right?
city?
You know
What
what I'm
gas
Sundown time.
station? Where you can
Sundown
go? Where you can go to the grocery
Don't be-
store?
Yeah, it's sundown time.
Yeah.
You can't get caught on that side of the county
Exactly.
at night,
Exactly. So, and it's a blessing to be able to kind of like reflect now and look at it, but it's also a chore to make sure that we discuss it on a regular basis. Sitting them down every time this stuff happened on TV. I actually got a picture. I was going through some old pictures. I got a picture when I had set my kids down to explain them what was going on in Baltimore with Freddie Gray, and they didn't understand. They was too small, And then now they older, and they like, this stuff still happening. I'm like, this stuff been happening since before all of us was here.
right? Yeah.
So like, don't think about it like this is a new occurrence. This is how certain segments in America are. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to play into the stereotype? You going to play into the game? You going to separate yourself? But I don't want to steer the conversation in a different direction. But because then you're talking about demographic PTSD, generational PTSD.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and there's starting to be a lot of research in that field now, because what we know about PTSD from a treatment standpoint is pretty much been the vast majority of it has been within the past 15 to 20 years. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan really helped to further along the research. There's an organization, the Defense Psychological Center of Excellence. They've done like just literally decades worth of work, past 2 decades worth of work, learning about PTSD, and then that information, it's matriculated into the civilian sector where they've done even more research. That's where the research into the average childhood experiences and all those stuff comes in. Now they're actually really looking at how racial distress and how like the trauma from racial distress and just trauma in general, how it's genetic, like it can be passed down genetically. It's really interesting when you read it. There's a book right now. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it basically talks about how your body can respond to trauma and how you can pass that along. One researcher was looking at even the name post-traumatic stress disorder, because that's saying that the traumas happened in the past. Do we
Like it's
even need to
over.
call it? Exactly. Do we need to call it like present
Yeah.
traumatic stress disorder? It's really interesting. There's a lot of research in what's happening right now, and a lot of good things in the field to further our understanding of that, as to why particularly we as Black folks in America, are the way we are, and those things, like the things that your grandmama's passed down, like, baby, don't let nobody know how much money you got. That came from somewhere. Like, hey, be
Yeah.
careful when you out there. If you in a room with a bunch of men, be careful not to look too threatening. That came
Yeah.
from somewhere.
Hey,
All
whatever
that
happened
stuff
in
came
this,
from
whatever
somewhere.
happened in this house, stay in this house. All that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Yep.
And
All
and
that
I
stuff.
mean, we could talk for hours about what you're supposed to say to the police and what you're not supposed to say, regardless of the
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yep.
and I don't understand, like, and that's one of the great benefits about the military. And G, I'm sure you'd agree with this, man. It's like, growing up in PG County, man, I grew up, I think, from 80 of born day to joining the service of 2000. I probably had 3 white friends, maybe 2 or 3 Asian friends, because I went to Oxon Hill. We had a huge Filipino population.
Mhm.
But dude, coming in the military, you got people from everywhere. It's a microcosm of America. So, you got the same percentages that's in America, just in the military. So, I mean, I got white friends from Thailand, Asian, Pacific Islander, everything. And they all my brothers. It's either because my, friendships are based on work ethic. And then when you get into these deep conversations with them, when you really start talking about your background and all these different things, it's crazy how they have no understanding of some of the things that was just normal to us, because for us,
Correct.
that's our world. Like I was explaining to one on one day, I'm like, bro, I lived in a it wasn't even the projects, it was just an apartment building on South Capitol Street going towards Friendship. I don't even know if they call it Friendship no more.
Mhm.
We had a sign on the building that said no drugs will be sold in this area.
Yep.
Why do I need a sign on my building? And I remember as a little kid looking at that sign, like, well, if you can't sell them here, then where can you sell them at? You know what I'm saying? Like, where is the
Triggers.
neighborhood where you can sell them? That sign is still there to this day on that same building.
Mhm.
It's way up on the building. And I've always looked at that and it's like, damn, if that's not saying something about our community, because that's a District of Columbia printed metal sign. They put a code in
they had to
to spin that
inform us.
sign out. Yeah, and it don't say school drug-free zone. Like that's a standard, like came out in the Reagan era, right? This was a you cannot sell drugs in here sign. Like, why do I have to print a sign that says that? And my friends are looking at me, it's like, no, that can't be real. I'm like, no, it's real. Like,
It is real.
Yeah, that's
Well,
normal.
I mean, you got to remember your environment shapes your opinions and
Your reality.
and everything, and your reality. So, like the things that our communities, the Black communities, deal with, these other communities don't deal with.
What's interesting is if you have a conversation with African immigrants, about the difference between Africans who come to America versus I don't like the term African Americans. That's a conversation for another time. But Black Americans who are here, you have a conversation with them and like you really break it down. And even, a lot of them when they're here long enough, they'll even see it. They're like, oh, I see it now. Like I see it. It's a huge difference. I've had the pleasure of having a lot of those really good conversations with a lot of cats that I've either met over the course of my career, whether we're deployed or at a conference or something like that. And a lot of them are like, "Oh, yeah, it's truly different. Like, it truly is different. Like, yeah, it is."
I'm telling you, man. I lived in Germany for 5 years. I was there for 2 years single before I met my wife. 2 years was great. 3 years after was great. And then, the family, we went to Italy. And I'm telling you, it's a different way of life. I was more nervous coming home after that time with my family because my kids was young the first time. And then the second time, my kids was older. And it's like it's completely different.
Well, I want to say, go ahead. Oh, Vince, go ahead. You go ahead first.
The thing about that is that we got to understand that America is a young country. And what America was built on, we've been taught was built by slavery. You know what I mean? And that's what we've been taught. These other countries, when you come to Europe and everything, they're just further removed from the same reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to say that I really feel like it's our generation also, because my kids, we talked about PG County a lot. My kids grew up in PG County, they live in PG County, they go to school in PG County. My kids still have no clue. No clue. My oldest son, he's now 22. When he was 16, I remember this day so vivid because that was the day I had to sit him down and have the police conversation with him. So I don't remember what we was doing, but we're driving. I know that you guys are familiar, maybe that you, Sergeant. Actually, no, because you worked on Andrews Airport.
He right down the street from
Yeah,
you.
but he worked on Andrews Airport. But he said, so we driving down Morningside, down the Suitland Road on Morningside, right? Now, anybody who lives there knows.
And you was probably doing 80.
No,
I know how you drive.
No. This is
Thank you.
daytime. So,
Thank you, by the way, Jimmy.
This is
Appreciate
daytime,
that.
and I'm not the same person. I'm not the same person. So let's slow it down. I got my son in the car. I get on it and I know how more. I was like, and I tell him, as soon as we turn on the road, I look at him, he don't got a seatbelt on. I said, hey, put on your seatbelt. And I said, because we going through here, Morningside police.
They're gonna be at the liquor store and the 7-Eleven. That's exactly what they're gonna be.
Absolutely.
They're gonna be at the
American Legion, there, the VFW, yeah, that's the VFW parking lot. So we get down, we driving, right? And I say that to him. He puts on his seatbelt. I'm cool. And as soon as we get up there, I said, they'll be right up here. As soon as we hit past those bushes, bow, he's sitting right there, right? And my son sits up in his seat and stares at the police car as we drive completely the entire time.
Oh.
And I looked at him, and I said to him, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, I'm not afraid of him. And I looked at him, right? So I'm still driving. So I start patting on him and shit, right? He goes, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm looking for your gun. Because he got one. So I want to know why you not worried about him. He got a gun. If he pulls us over, hold on, just let me finish. He has a gun. If he pulls us over, you are the defenseless person. You do understand that, right? And he can make up the reason why he shot you, because if you did, you can't tell the story. I said, man, I got one rule for you. One rule from this point on. Always come home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit what's going on. I don't give a shit what's happening. You got one rule, and that's to always come home. And then I had to sit down and have the conversation with him. I showed him videos and this, that, and other, and we had the conversation. I said, look, I'm not saying all police are like this. I'm not stereotyping anyone. But the reality is you want to come home. You don't know what that person is going through that day. You don't know what happened to him 10 minutes before he interacted with you. So therefore, you don't do nothing to. So the only time something bad happens in an interaction with police is when somebody is out of control, and that person out of control does not have to be you. You know what I'm saying? You just have to go home. That's the only thing you got to do, because you don't know if that person is in control that day or what's going on with them. Everybody has issues, whatever case may be, and this is another conversation for another day also. But I told him, I was like, look, man. I said, and I showed him video. I said, you see that? The police officer is out of control. The police officer asked the guy, I showed him the video of the police officer asking the guy for his ID, and the guy reaches back in the car for his ID, and the police officer shot him.
Right.
Shot him. And he's like, it's my wallet. And this was the white guy that was getting shot. And I was like, you see that? You see how easy that is? Just like that. He asked him for his ID, he reaches in for his ID and shoots. I was like, somebody has to be in control. You got to understand what's going on here. You can't sit there and just think you can do whatever you want. You can't. The only thing you want to do is get home. That's what you want to. I want you to make sure you do. That was my conversation. So I was just saying that because my kids they've lived in PG County and all this, and they still don't understand the things that I was privy to at a very young age because it had those interactions. So,
yeah, but is that part of you teaching them from your post-traumatic stress syndrome? Because if your interaction with the police at some point, you have passed that stress down.
That's what stress. I want him to come home.
No. You're not thinking. You got to think through it.
Is it post or is it present?
The present, like you at some point, Robbie, you had a trauma incident with the police officer or a police officer.
And a lot of us as Black folks, we see trauma on the news every day.
Correct.
Vicarious trauma is a thing because we have these things called mirror neurons that, like, as human beings, we were designed to be social creatures. So they help us associate with other people. So if we see people who look like us get killed every day by the police, of course we're going to experience that. And then the repetition of which we see it, we're re-traumatized every day we cut the news on. That's why, a lot of therapists tell people to stop watching the news.
Yes.
But here's the other thing. I don't feel that way because I definitely expressed to him that it's not all police officers. Me and him, me and him personally have had great interactions with the sergeant, detective that had to deal with the case that happened with my son, and that dude was phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different. I definitely didn't tell him all cops and nothing like that. My goal is you got to come home. That's it. Be respectful. Do whatever you got to do to come home. Don't let whatever you going through that day change, and then that person makes you do something and you out of control, and then you don't go home. And not going home don't mean you're shot. It means you're arrested. You're not coming home. It doesn't. So it doesn't mean he's dead. But my goal is anytime you go out in these streets, you got one, and it has not to be police. Let's say somebody's robbing you. Let's say this is happening. You have one. Only thing I want you to think the whole time is I need to go home. So if this person wants my wallet, take it. You can go ahead.
But that's the thing, though. At the end of the day, all of us, whether I think one of the bigger things that I try to talk about in my household, because we always talk about community, Black community, but at the end, ultimately, how many times is a community actually interacting? Like on a community level conversation. We don't really do that. Like we don't have those conglomerates. We don't have those inner working agencies. And I'm sure there's some that exist. And like this is one, now that we got Zoom and all these since COVID, everything's kind of been picking up. But we got to start at home, right? Each one teach one. It starts at the crib, right? It starts at the house. But at the end of the day, we're a combination of our experiences. Now, as parents, we want to protect our kids from the experiences that harmed us, that gave us, these potential anxiety issues or PTSD or anything else that's in DSM-5. We want to make sure that we're protecting them from the things that hurt us, because that's how, living creatures learn. Is you learn by fear. You touch fire, it burns. You don't. You might touch it again to see if that was real, but you don't touch it. You're gonna learn. We learn based on fear and based on joy. Hey, that felt great. I want to do it again. That felt horrible. I want to do it again. So, I don't want to do it again. So we try to teach our children based on that. Now, our children who don't know, whatever that interaction is, that child that doesn't know, that's why we have those challenges. And I don't agree with you, or I don't understand, or I'm gonna do it anyway, because they haven't been burned yet. Right. So those of us that have been, I'll just say, lucky enough or blessed enough, whatever way you choose, is our children haven't had some of those experiences. But at the same time, I'm sending my daughter off to Virginia Tech. So now I'm like, all right, now I got to start really talking to her about things that she hasn't experienced yet.
Yeah.
Because I can't send her up there green. So we have, we've been having for those one-on-one conversations. So a lot of that stuff, whether it's being passed down through DNA from the mom directly to the child, or somehow from the father, it's critical that we acknowledge where we are, right? We have to know where we are. We have to know what our fears are. From my personal aspect, as discussed earlier, it's all about resiliency. So if we use that as a foundation, even if whether that's your spiritual resiliency, emotional resiliency, physical resiliency, whatever it is, if you start with that, you can build anything on top of that, because life is going to slap you. It's just all about how you react to it.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to get pulled over. It's about how you react to it. You're going to get disrespected. You know what I'm saying? Something traumatic is going to happen to you. How are you going to handle it? And I can tell you, for years, I handled it with different types of alcohol that I'm officially allergic to now. Like if I smell Hennessy, I'll probably throw up. Tanqueray, if my wife see me walking here with Tanqueray, she'll probably request, file divorce petition. You know what I'm saying? I can't drink Tanqueray no more. I have gotten to the point where she is cool with Jameson, because I have proved that I know how to act when, with a couple of glasses of whiskey, but there's just certain things I can't do because, I don't know how to, partake in those things and still conduct myself as a reasonable individual, because a lot of those old dark memories start coming up. You know,
Yep.
especially and Doc, well, if you could speak to this one, like for me, what I've noticed is, you know how the military is, you know, just in general. Soldiers get together, they start drinking, we start talking. Oh yeah, this and
Hmm.
that, and old times and that.
Yeah, we just
Story,
call that choir
right?
practice.
Choir practice, right?
Choir
And especially
practice.
if you
Yep.
ever met anybody from Bragg, you're like, man, back in Bragg, man, we jump out of airplanes, we do this, you know. So you ever meet a paratrooper, you already
Yeah.
know how that go. But
Mhm.
what I've learned over these last couple of years is that it's extremely dangerous to drink by yourself.
Yes.
And not only just by yourself, but like for me, I spend a lot of time away from here. I got to go to Detroit for like 30 days, or Arizona for 20 days, or Pennsylvania for like up in York, not Philly, but like York. up
Next
there
time
with
you
the
go to
Amish
York, let
folks.
me know. I got a shop up there, a food shop, by the way. Just so I'll let you know.
Will do, will do. But I'll find myself in those places, man. And I got a fifth, I got a pint, and I'm just sipping. And before you know it, I'm thinking about this one time in 2003. I'm thinking about I'm black on this UH-60 in Afghanistan in 2012. I'm calling people on my phone I ain't talked to in 15 years, and it got bad for a minute. So I had to like really like kind of relook what I was doing. And this was like within the last 2 or 3 years, man. That shit kind of got bad for me. I had to get back in there on the third floor and to talk to Doc.
Yeah.
Mm.
So let me add a little bit to that. It's dangerous to drink alone when you don't know why you're drinking. And one of the
Yeah.
things that, in my work with patients, I always say, know yourself, know why you're doing the things that you're doing. Because if you don't handle your emotions, they handle you. They are controlling you. You're being driven by uh, your lizard brain. You're being driven by your hippocampus, your amygdala. What you want that prefrontal cortex. You want that thought center, that executive functioning, to be able to control your actions and know why it is that you're doing what you're doing. Because if not, your amygdala will do it. That's just the beauty of our brains. And we evolve that way as human beings for survival. There are certain things that our bodies will automatically do to survive. And that's part of where trauma comes from and why it affects human beings the way that it does. So the drinking thing, if you're not sure why you're drinking or what alcohol or any kind of coping skill really is serving you, then absolutely is dangerous, because what's going to happen, again, you're being driven by that amygdala, not that prefrontal cortex. You're being driven by that emotion center, that memory center where that trauma is stored. So yeah, that absolutely is dangerous. That
Wow.
absolutely
Yeah.
is dangerous. That's one of the, like in treatment, right? Whether it's addictions treatment or any PTSD treatment, one of the main things that you work on is being able to identify your triggers. That's triggers being like overused these days, but that's basically what you're doing. You're identifying your triggers. What's triggering you to drink? What's triggering these thoughts? What's triggering these emotions? And all of that is an exercise to get you to be able to understand why it is I'm doing what I'm doing. Once you got that down, once you know that, you have so much power.
Absolutely. Now, I definitely, I've realized that in my recent time now, that once I started realizing why I was doing the things I was doing, man, it was definitely powerful. Now I got a question. So a person is going through PTSD. What would be, like, let's say that somebody is realizing they're going through all these things and instead of they go, I might have PTSD. What is your suggestion for that person to do?
So obviously seek professional assistance. Go talk to a counselor. Get first thing you want to do is get assessed by a counselor. Some people, just like you have a doctor who will give somebody a diagnosis without really fully evaluating them, and that may not be the best diagnosis. Same thing happens in the mental health field. So you want to make sure that you get assessed for PTSD. And if you're given that diagnosis, whatever practitioner sees you, they should be able to tell you, hey, you met the hypervigilance criteria by you reporting XYZ. Loss of relationships, you fit this criteria because you said that you didn't get help and your wife divorced you or your husband left you. So that you want to make sure that you got that diagnosis, and it's an actual legit diagnosis, not just something that's billable by insurance. And then once you do that, you want to get into some form of a treatment. Most of the time for PTSD, they're going to get in some kind of evidence-based cognitive treatment. So cognitive processing therapy is like one of the main things. Another one is prolonged exposure. And sirens.
Yeah,
Hey, I got 'em.
But
So-
those are the things I recommend.
No, I got them. So, and all those points are valid. I would add to that because those are the things that start once you get in the door, right? The hardest part is getting in the door, right? Because the majority, and I'm gonna say us, I'm talking about like service members, specifically Army dudes, because that's who I've been around for 23 years. You know, the ground pounders, the paratroopers, the infantrymen, the special ops guys, all that stuff is that we're not going in to go see nobody. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to go talk to nobody. I don't want nobody to know I'm going to go talk to nobody. I'm going to sit here with my buddy and we're going to drink away the pain. That's ultimately what happens. So the first step is acknowledging the fact that it's okay that you feel like something is not okay. And it's okay to go ahead and reach out to somebody who's not certified to talk to you, other than somebody who's not certified, because we constantly going to our boys and our homies, and that's cool. That's fine, because you got to talk to somebody, but eventually get to that person who knows what they're talking about, because that's the only way you're going to get true help.
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience, I self-medicated for I'm on 23 years now, so I self-medicated for 20 years. You know, I just actually reached out and started getting some help about 3 years ago. But for every year before that, 15, 20 times a year, 30 times a year, 40 times a year, I'm getting shit-faced drunk. I'm blacking out. I'm partying too much. I'm doing whatever. And then it slowly got, digressed as my children got older and as my responsibilities got more. But then I would always still find that time to it was almost like a relapse. You know what I'm saying? I would be good for 18 months, and then, my wife and the kids went out of town, and I'm here by myself. All right, cool. I'm gonna start having a good time, and it's a good time at the beginning, but before I know it, I'm crying and I'm thinking about this dude and people in this incident and all of this stuff. And it's 5 o'clock in the morning, the sun is coming up. I'm trying to make breakfast. You know what I'm saying? It gets to be too much, So the first thing to do is to figure out that it's okay that you're not okay, because you ain't the only one, and then go have that conversation with the right person.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It is
absolutely.
okay to not be okay.
Yes. Hey, man. There you go. I feel like that was something I had to realize too, brother. So, all right. Well, hey, fellas, that was a great conversation. Thank you for joining us this week and definitely having it. I also, want to reach out to my personal friend. I'm hoping that he hears this conversation and he works on the things that he needs to do. And it is okay to not be okay. I definitely want to send that out to him and let him know that I'm definitely okay with it. I'm here for him whenever and however I can be. But let's go into some other topics, fellas, to end the show. So, I had my boy on here. I was excited to get him on here, Chief Jimmy. And it's a great thing that we were friends as kids. We separated for a while, but then when we met back up with each other, it was like we never left each other. And I'm happy to have friends and people in my life like that. But I want to get his opinion, because I know he's a very opinionated guy. When it comes to music and movies and things like that. So, two things. I want to kind of, I want to get your top three, but I also want to know, like, from what movie was like the most accurate to what you've been through, that wasn't glorified by Hollywood or some BS like that, and just get your opinion on those things. But let's start with we're going to go with our top 3 war movies. And Jimmy, if you want to go first, if not, I'll get started with. Actually, hold on, time out. I'm sorry. Before we get into that, Vance, do you really think we should let Sergeant Garrett even give his opinion on anything? Because last time on this show, he decided to tell us his 3 albums. His 3 albums that he would bring on an island, and
I'm waiting to hear this one.
And one of them was, what was the name? They were Grammy Award winning something, blah, blah. He gave a good pitch.
Yeah,
like,
leave it all behind. Yeah.
Leave it all behind.
And I was like, okay, we're gonna check that out and get back to you. And I can honestly say that album was the most depressing album I ever heard about a guy breaking up with his girlfriend for every song. So when you heard that, you must
The
have
first thing he
just
thought about was
got
like,
through a
"Dad, she broke my bad heart, bro." Like,
Yeah,
whoever
I
this
was
shit
like,
was.
yo, I don't know what that happened, but he need therapy. He need to really,
Hey, but
really
look though,
discuss his
but look though,
emotions.
you got to look at it like this, man. He's a mental health specialist, man.
I was
So
just going to say, look, that's
he
probably
was
why I
in his
spoke to
he
him.
was in his
That's
MO,
probably
man.
why I spoke to him.
Nah,
He's like, yo, my man is feeling it.
Nah,
Hey, look, that dude was hitting every benchmark in that DSM-5. That's why he had all the symptoms, had all the recuperating methods, all of
Oh,
that.
man, that's
I was
funny.
like, I was like, why do I gotta hear about the same chick for fucking 3 songs? I was like, nah, like, yo, she's gone.
That's what's up.
So you know, I
Yeah,
was
no-
like,
Funny.
so we're gonna get back to, you know, I had to mention that
Okay.
to you, you know.
Yeah,
but,
that's funny. That's funny.
I guess we'll give you another chance, but we're gonna be, you know, we're gonna make you go first because I want to be super critical about
Super
your top
critical.
your top 3 movies. Because if you name
Oh.
something we ain't seen before or heard, you know, you'd be like, oh, Lego Star Wars was my number. Nah, dog.
Oh man,
So,
top 3 military movies. So first, let me say, I actually am one of the people that I don't enjoy military movies that much. I honestly think it just becomes from doing mental health and hearing some of the stories.
Mhm.
But I have seen them, and honestly, my number 1 is Saving Private Ryan. That's like,
Really?
Okay.
yeah, because
Alright.
I mean, I'm a Tom Hanks fan. He's that dude. He's one of my favorite actors. I thought that was a good movie. But I like to laugh, and so this movie isn't per se just solely about the military,
Mhm,
but in my mind, it's a classic, and I
mhm.
love it. And that's Major Payne.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I love me some
Okay.
Major Payne.
So far, you're not losing so far.
We
You're not
So I'm
losing.
not losing.
All right,
Hey,
but
look,
you
we
know,
watched it in the barbershop.
Vance, slow it down, Vance, slow it down, because you know what happens. They always come strong on the first 2.
Come
Okay,
strong on the
the
first
third
2.
one
Alright,
is a
okay,
dirty.
alright,
So
alright.
don't let them
Said, don't let the
Yeah.
smooth taste fool you.
Here it come. You talking about here it come, huh?
Yeah, he really
Yeah.
keep learning. Here it comes. It's gonna come. So we
Okay,
waiting for 3.
He
Don't try
better
to
he
change
better
it
So-
say
now.
he better
Put what's
say
on
the
your
one that
paper. Put what's
he
on your
better say
paper.
the right one on the last one, because if he'll say
Look.
the next one, I don't know if he a mental health specialist or not.
Well, I mean, look. So you know, I was gonna say the other one is it's a movie I've seen so many times because I show it in treatment, and I did a training with some mental health residents who were learning how to be mental health providers, learning how to identify PTSD,
He's
and this
trying
movie
to
is
build it
really
so we
great with
don't
that.
argue. He's trying to build it so we don't argue.
And this-
Now
and it's
if he say
called-
the right one, you're not gonna be able to argue.
Look, and it's called Restrepo. It's a documentary about
There you go. That's
Army
that one
unit.
I ain't never heard of. There you go.
It's
There you
a
go.
documentary
There
about
you go.
an
What's the
army,
name of it?
an
No,
army unit in
No, the
the
answer
helmet
is
province
no.
in
The
Afghanistan.
answer is no.
Hold on, man.
Look,
Hold on,
check it
hold on,
out.
Ryan.
Check it out.
No,
Come on,
unless
Ryan,
Jimmy
let him
says
finish.
he's seen it. Unless Jimmy
Oh, he
says
in the
he's
army.
seen
No,
He's
it.
seen it.
I haven't seen it, but let him finish,
Oh,
man. Let him
there you
finish. I
go.
want
No,
to
You haven't
hear
seen
what he's
Restrepo?
about.
No.
Oh man,
No.
y'all need to
That's
watch
what he did to us
Restrepo.
last time. Exactly what he did to us last time. This is exactly what he did
That
to us
wasn't that
last
wasn't
time.
that
on
wasn't
the
it,
island.
but I thought you was gonna say different.
I'm gonna go check it out on Rotten Tomatoes before I
Yeah,
spend a minute
check it
on
out. Check it out. Now hold on.
Watch it
The thing
regardless.
is,
I'm a movie
it's a
junkie. I'm
documentary,
gonna
though.
watch it regardless.
Okay, I got you.
It's a documentary. It's not
I
a
refuse
scripted
to
movie.
watch
It's a
it.
documentary.
Not watching.
But it's
Nope.
good. It's good. Look,
You're not
now
gonna
also
give me change.
keep that
Fool
up.
me once. Fool me once. You're not
Look,
getting me twice. Doc.
you
You're not
already know
getting
my
me
lens
twice.
now.
Nah,
You already know
no.
the lens at which I view
Not
things
watching
now,
it.
right?
But
So-
documentaries normally gonna hit from a different angle. So I mean, as
Yeah.
long as they stick to the script, then it's about realism. Once you see a documentary, if
Yeah,
it
it
look like
is.
it's if they can show me some realistic stuff and they talking legit, then I can definitely
watch it.
rate it. Yeah, I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
hey, look.
Hey, well, I
Sergeant
tell you,
Garrett will be back. You know what I'm saying? I think he's gonna be back with 2 strikes, or
Yeah.
he's gonna be, you know what I mean?
He
I tell
already
you
got a
what,
strike
man.
Y'all
for
let me
me.
know.
Mine-
Yeah, like,
Y'all
y'all let me
mine's
know what
on
y'all
the-
think.
Hey,
Go
look,
ahead,
mine's
go ahead,
on a
James.
completely different level. So I'm gonna give you my 3, but one of my 3, All right, I'm just gonna give it to you. So you said the most realistic. So I'm gonna go way left because this is not in my
But no,
top
no,
three.
there's two different things. So I want your top three, and then I want the most realistic.
All
That's
right,
just
so
for
my
you
top,
personally. Yeah.
so my top three in no particular order is so I love Fury, with
Okay.
Brad Pitt in it when they was on the
Yeah.
Good
tank.
movie.
Specifically, not because it's an army or what they was doing, but specifically because I had never seen the movie, and I was deployed. I deployed 2 times with this unit, and then we went to the field. We was going back and forth to the field in Germany, and the sergeant major, and I was already a chief at this time. The chief of the maintenance team or whatever, and I'm out there in the mud, recovering vehicles, pulling stuff out, all this different stuff going on. And sergeant major used to always walk up, and he's like, "Hey man, you acting like Fury, you like Fury." And I always walked around, had a cigar in my mouth. I wasn't never in the same uniform as everybody else because I'm a chief. I just don't care, right? I'm gonna do what I gotta do. And I never knew what he was talking about. And I finally caught the movie, and I was like, "Oh, he thinks I'm this guy." Okay, so I watched the movie, and I was like, "Okay, cool. I like everything about their brotherhood. I like how they was fighting each other, and then they loved each other. So
Yeah.
that was a cool movie. I don't watch a lot of military movies. I don't watch a lot of any movies. At this point, I just watch sports, the news, and A&E. So my other is Glory, all time classic, right?
Oh,
For
that's
obvious
mine.
reasons.
I'm on that.
I don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
okay.
even need to state the reason why. Like I watched that movie so young, that it speaks for itself, right? I can go all day about all my different stepfathers that's in that movie. You know what I'm saying? Everybody
Oh,
know the
yeah.
song. They was singing that song, man. John
Yeah.
had me crying, man. Every time I hear them sing that, I got to change the channel because I get real emotional when they were singing right before they went into that last fight.
Mhm.
And it means even more to me now after all the different deployments and different combat endeavors I've been in. Now the last one is just a favorite movie, man. Just Top Gun, man, and the new one was great also.
The new
Obviously,
one was
the
on
first one
there.
was
The
a
new one was
classic.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one was a classic. That was one of the first movies, and it's got an emotional spot for me because it was one of the first movies I went to go see with my dad at the Marlow Heights movie theater back before they had rats.
Yeah.
So
Nah,
like
they
that
clean
was
the
that
rats
was,
out now.
They clean the rats out.
They clean the rats
Okay.
out now. Yeah.
But I never
That's a-
I never forget going to that movie theater because when I would go to that movie theater, I knew I was going with him. You know what I'm saying? Like that was our weekend or whatever. So we went there to see that. We went there to see Boys in the Hood when it came out, all that. So that's one of those moments like Top Gun. And then the new one was really actually kind of good. I liked it a lot. They stuck to the script, stuck to the story, and didn't go too far left.
I
How
liked
realistic
it
it
a lot
is.
more than I thought I was gonna like it too.
Yeah, me
liked it
too.
more
I
than
didn't watch it as soon as it came out because I was scared it was gonna be
Mhm.
whack, but it was pretty dope. Realism, I don't know nothing about the Air Force other than when I used to work on Andrews before I went in the military. And then jumping out of the airplanes. The most realistic movie. This is way left, and I really don't like this movie per se, but Jarhead. Jarhead was the most realistic.
I was gonna say
I would
realistic is
agree,
probably
yeah.
Jarhead. I was
I
gonna say
can
the
see
same
that.
thing.
That's the most realistic. Now, see, that was during Operation Desert Storm,
There's a storm.
right?
Mhm.
Desert Shield. So I wasn't there during that time, but what I could tell you is that the waiting around, the nothing to do, the we're here to do this super important mission. We're going to go and kick the bad guy in the face, and then you just sit there and look out of a daggone fighting position for hours and hours and hours. And granted, those guys are snipers. I've never been a sniper, but I have sat in the foxhole in the middle of a berm for 12 hours at a time.
Yep, those LPOPs. Yep.
Yeah,
Done
man,
that too.
from midnight
Done
to
that
noon,
too.
and you just sitting there dying, like, come
Yeah.
on, somebody please shoot at me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm about to fall asleep.
Wow.
So and then with the wife, cheating on them and the videos and the way they
Yeah.
talking to each other, even though they loved each other. The role of Jamie Foxx, I've had so many NCOs that was just like that for me, who would kick me in the butt, but also cared about me enough to always be there and put me in positions of to succeed while also put me in positions to see if I would fail. So that is the most realistic military movie I've watched.
Wow.
From that aspect, not from any type of combat aspect whatsoever.
All right.
And the thing I like about Jamie Foxx's role too is like Jamie Foxx, his role was like he was one of those people like he was born to do that. Like he was in the military. That's what he was doing. Like he even has a line like he thanks God for the Corps every day. And again, me being mental health, right? That's the lens through I see everything now. I look at like he would struggle because, and this is what I've seen from people when they get out the military, when they don't have it or they can't do it, they struggle without it. So
And that's the thing. That's the type of NCO I was for like 10 years of my career.
Yeah.
That's who I was, that type of guy. I mean, I wasn't in charge of a bunch of infantry guys, but I got 30 dudes and we running a maintenance shop and we all over different parts of Afghanistan, Iraq. I got guys that don't want to work. I got guys that don't know what they're doing. I got to run them 5, 6, 7 miles every morning or every other morning, whatever it is. That was the type of NCO I was. You know what I'm saying? They used to call me Android because it was like always, all day, always, all day. And then luckily I got into some positions. I went warrant officer and I was able to alter my techniques a little bit and start taking care of myself a little bit more. Still love my guys, but I just don't have a team like I used to.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, Vance, you want to follow that up?
I mean, he mentioned one. Glory, of course, is one of the all-time favorites. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It teaches history. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not they're all, I mean, the story is true. Whether or not what took place is all true, you don't know. But you know what I'm saying? It definitely got the message across. And then from there, and maybe I'm a little sick with it, but Black Hawk Down was a really good movie to me.
It really was.
It was one of those movies like, America, you don't belong here. And we about to show you why you don't belong here. And it showed the brotherhood and them having to stick together to get out of a situation that they were put in, right? You know what I mean? They had to go save their brothers. They had to sacrifice themselves to get people out. You know what I mean? So Black Hawk Down was probably what's the name. But in the world of PTS,
and if I could say,
huh?
I'm sorry, if I could say also, it also reminded a lot of people that we can get our ass kicked too.
Correct.
We got this technique of propaganda that just, I mean, it make a whole lot of people that never wore the uniform think that we can go whip anybody.
We can go anywhere we want.
The bullets ain't got no names, man.
they sure don't.
They will light you up off the frame.
Yeah, man. And it kind of, I was glad that it showed that, because that's one of the things you actually get out of those type movies. It's like, hey, we think we big and bad until we get put in situations where we ain't big and bad, right?
And then was Rangers and special operations. That's the best we got on the Army side. You know, they was getting tagged.
Yep.
And that's how it happened. But go ahead, brother. My bad.
Oh yeah, you all good. But this is an open
conversation. You can interrupt anytime you want.
Oh, no doubt. We're completely bringing on a typical basis.
Especially when people put in documentaries that after they already bombed once, and now y'all gonna watch it again. Right? I don't know why y'all gonna watch that again. I'm not watching it because I refuse to give him a second strike. You get one strike with me. That's it. Only one. That's good. But go ahead.
So my last
you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. It's good. Look, you gotta give it a chance now. Look,
I'll watch it if Jimmy tells me it's good. That's
I'll watch it for you.
I don't even trust you. I don't trust you either.
You're right.
Because you'll watch it and tell me it's great just to punish me.
Sure will, just to get you to watch it.
I don't trust you at all.
Oh, man.
Yeah. My last one, though, is right along the line of PTSD, and it's American Sniper, right?
All right.
Because
you took one of mine, I'll give you that too.
Because of what he was dealing with, you know what I mean? Wanting to go back, wanting to come home, and all of that drama that he had to deal with, and hitting his mark, catching his mark, saving his guys, but wanting to be with his family. Like it literally was a perpetual circle that he was going in until he ended up unfortunately taking his life. But you know what I mean? It's just like that in and of itself really, you know what I'm saying, show what some of our military guys and regular people go through when they have those type dramas.
And I'm gonna tell you, you know, it's funny the way you connected those dots, man, because when you in the, we call it the rear, when you in the rear and your guys are deployed, all you want to do is get there with them. Yep. And then once you get there and you in the shits, all you can do is wait. You can't wait to get home. You know, and that's why it was really difficult for me to like talk to my wife, because I had deployed 3 times before we got married. So by the time we was married and I deployed right after we got married and my daughter was 3 months old, I would make videos and send them home. You know, it was 2005, so you know I'm recording and then trying to email it. But then later when I deployed in 13, 14, 15, 16. I didn't want to talk on the phone that much. Like she didn't really understand it. You know, I was like, look, man, I don't really want to talk, because I would get into this mode where I can't be what you want me to be because I need to be who I'm supposed to be out here. And if I start thinking about y'all, you know, then I'm gonna drop something. I'm gonna drop the
Yeah.
ball back here.
It's a
You know what I'm saying? I'm
distraction.
gonna miss something now. Yeah, and she really didn't. She didn't. It was unfair to her, you know, because the kids was young, you know, all of that stuff. So, but that was a trying time, and you know, we've talked about it recently. I'm talking like during COVID when we was at home every day for 6 months. But this deployment happened in 13, 14, 15. We
Wow.
didn't talk about it till 2020. You know what I'm
Right.
Yeah.
saying? Like really got it out of our system. Knowing to a lot of that, I didn't know.
Yeah, at my retirement ceremony, my commander was my officiating officer, and she wanted to know about my deployment experiences. And like I said, I did security forces for 6.5 years. So the first time in Iraq we did convoys. The second time we secured the airfield, and it was constantly being bombed. So and then Afghanistan, I was mental health, so I stayed pretty much in the rear. But then we traveled to a couple different FOBs to provide services for the remote people. So you know, seen some stuff, but I never talked about it. And so when she pulled it out, and I'm okay with it, I've made peace with what happened, so I have no issues talking about it. So when everyone heard about some of those things, everyone was like, "Wait, what? You did what? Like the Iraqi army? What? Like, yeah, I couldn't at the time. I definitely not going to talk about that with y'all. But later on, I don't know if you find this true, but I couldn't. It was really hard for me to talk about my deployment experiences with anyone other than people who have already deployed.
Yeah, exactly. It's difficult.
So,
You talk around it. It's like
yeah.
you eat around the edges of the pizza, you
Yep.
know, because you don't want to seem as though you're glorifying it when you're talking
Yep.
to a civilian, you know.
Mhm.
You don't want to make it more than what it was. You don't, but you also don't want to shut down the conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But when you're talking to somebody who's been like you in the Air Force, you security forces, mental health. I was a maintenance dude, turned wrenches, drove recovery vehicles, you know, through mud and convoy. We could talk for hours, depending on how much alcohol is there. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what you got to do and what I got to do.
Look,
We
depending on how
could
much
talk
crown
for
I got.
hours. Yeah, exactly. We could just go in because
Yeah.
we got that relatable experiences, you
Mhm.
know, relatable experience. So it's just like you put two dope boys in a room, man. They talk all day
Yeah.
long. You put a
Yeah.
dope boy and a civilian dude, they ain't got much to talk about, you know,
Yep.
and they gonna work that well. But it does bring up like it's difficult and it's unfortunate because like even like Rod said, the Beach Boys. I be talking to my guys, man. First time I seen most of them in 20 years was when our boy got married last year or year before last, and you know I was so happy to see them, but it was a lot of stuff I just couldn't get out of my system. Like it was like right
Yeah.
here in the top of my chest, you know. And then as the night went on and I started drinking, and it was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit more now, you know. And then it was what it was.
Yeah,
right?
he was the only one on punishment, but you know, everybody, all our wives is used to it. But he was the only one on punishment when he had to sit in the car until the wedding got ready to start. He had to sit in the car and be on time out.
Bro, that wasn't punishment. That was called apologizing. That's what that was called. It's a big difference.
That was a great night, though. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was good.
You know, and then, I know. Once your wife saw us together, I mean, it was a great time. We hadn't been together. All of us together had to be at least 20 years plus before we all went in the same
plus,
area together, and it was a great time for that. So my movie. So y'all named two of my movies, so I had some backups just in case. I'm gonna go ahead and give Sergeant Garrett, Saving Private Ryan was one of mine, and American Sniper was one of mine. So but I also had, some backups. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in some of my backups, which everybody. So we go back. Platoon was one of mine, and I think that's just a classic movie.
Charlie Sheen, right?
Yes, that was. But hold on, that was with Private Parts and what you call it, right? Hold on, am I saying movie? Yeah. But anyway, let's go.
I had Platoon on VHS.
Yeah, next was more new, which was Hurt Locker. I did enjoy that movie.
Yeah, it was.
I did really enjoy that movie. That was with Jeremy Renner and Anthony Mackie, who's also doing that Twisted Metal remake that I'm excited about when that comes out.
Yeah. I like Hurt Locker.
But
I like Hurt Locker.
Yeah, but Hurt Locker definitely went into that whole PTSD thing about some people that just can't can't let it go. You know what I'm saying? When he went
Yeah.
back, he went back. He couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah, and you
risk
know,
his life.
there's
one that nobody mentioned, by the way. I just let y'all know.
Well, I'm not
I'll let
finished yet.
Rodney finish.
Yeah. Go ahead. What you about to say, Sergeant Garrett?
Oh, I was just about to say, along with PTSD, you got to talk about. Then the Hurt Locker illustrates this point perfectly. Control. He felt like he had more control when he was over doing his job. So when he's coming back, remember the scene where he's in the grocery store. He couldn't pick out cereal. That's like voice overload. So like, look, let me go back to where I can go defuse these bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
And the only choice is to live. That's right. What happened. But last, okay. So my last movie is actually my favorite. But I guess it's technically not a war movie, but it is a war movie. So I don't know what y'all gonna say about that, but it's Dead Presidents. Dead Presidents did. There was 40% of that movie that was
man. That was it was like 15%, man.
No, that
was not 40%, man.
Just because somebody joined the military movie.
I don't know. That's,
no, you ain't got to think about it.
Dead Presidents. Dead Presidents.
No, you're not getting the whole pass on that.
No, you're not getting the whole pass on those.
You're not getting the whole pass on that.
He had PTSD when he came back. He talked about.
You didn't say a movie when you didn't say a PTSD movie.
You didn't say a war movie.
You said military movie.
That's not a war movie.
Robbed the bank. It was military base.
So is American Gangster a war movie? Is American Gangster
a war movie?
No, because it didn't show scenes.
Then neither is Dead President.
40% of the movie they were in Vietnam.
Oh, nobody want to hear it, man.
It was not 40% of the movie.
I don't think the premise of the movie was about Vietnam, though.
No, 40% of the movie they were in Vietnam.
Just for that, why don't you go watch
it? Look, you didn't listen to another Foreign Exchange album now.
No.
Go watch Sergeant Garrett's movie, man, and then you can count it. You count
go back and figure out how to change a fraction into a percent again and see if it's still 40%.
40% of the movie, dog. You gotta understand. The movie was there was only 10 minutes of the movie before he was in Vietnam. The opening scene was only 10 minutes.
But then he was only in Vietnam for 10 minutes.
He was only over there. He was only over there for like 10 minutes, and then the rest of the movie
wasn't that much of a movie.
I'm waiting.
Before you know it, he was right back in the club, and he was in the bedroom.
No, it wasn't. Nah,
it was a great movie. It was a great. I love the movie. Great movie.
You had to go through the scene. You had to go through the scene where they were in the woods. Where they got what's called the first time. Hold on, let me finish. Then they go through the scene where
not a military movie, bro.
I mean, the Four Bloods is more of a movie than
that's what I'm saying. It is.
Nah, the Four Bloods is considered a military movie. It's considered a military movie.
It was more of a military movie than Dead Presidents.
Yo,
Dead Presidents.
You know how long Dead Presidents was? Dead Presidents was a 2.5 hour long movie. 1 hour that was just Vietnam. 1 hour of that was just Vietnam.
I'm gonna go check. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And if you're wrong, you're wrong.
You ain't gotta check nothing. If anybody talked about military movies, they would not list Dead Presidents as no military. Like you ain't gotta go check that. Don't let him question. Don't make him question.
Hold on. Time out. You took Foreign Exchange as a top 3 album of all time. But you're not gonna check my references.
I didn't take Foreign Exchange.
Wait, I never said it all the time.
I did not take Foreign Exchange. I said,
hey, Rodney, you can't be mad at him because you made a bad choice.
Should be checked.
Now, Rodney, if you'd have said military-induced PTSD movie, Dead Presidents would be top 3, no question. It's just not a military movie. There's a gazillion other military movies that will outrank that as a military movie.
I'm not talking about it. I don't care if it then what is it? Then tell me what it is.
It's a regular movie.
I told you what it is.
It's not a regular movie.
It's a military-induced PTSD.
There you go. As long as military is in the title, I'm good. I'm okay
one of the most influential sections of any movie. I agree with you.
I agree.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that title.
Because you know what? If you'd have took that out, because check this out. The thing is, this is the real reason why I say that. They could have did the whole movie without them ever going to Vietnam.
Yep.
Nah, they
They
could
could have
have.
just
No,
came
no
up with
way.
it. They could have
They
just
could have
came.
skipped the whole Vietnam scene.
Nah, it explained everything about
No, it
everything
didn't.
they were going
No,
through.
I get it, but hear me out. They could have just been some dudes that grew up in Brooklyn that just didn't whatever, and then they
They
start
could have
running back.
said, they could have
And it
said,
would've
went to the
still been a great
military,
movie.
return.
I just
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah, they
I
could've.
feel like you know what, y'all are triggering me right now, and I feel like that this is not
Hey,
something that
where my
I
squeeze
should
ball?
have to battle.
Get your squeeze ball.
You know what I'm
Get
saying?
your,
Like,
get your
Mhm.
stress ball.
like when hey, Advance, if we was talking
I'm
about
not
football
letting you slide
techniques,
on it.
I would give you okay. If
I'm
we was
not
talking
letting you
about
slide.
mechanic or self, what you call it, I would give Sergeant Garrett and Jimmy okay. But we talking in my expertise, which is movies.
And you
And
didn't even name the
therefore,
top military
I don't
movie.
need to consider
And you-
it's
and
mine.
you ain't in the
can't-
military.
It's mine. It's
It's
my
a movie
opinion.
about the military. And you ain't.
I got
in it.
one question.
Yeah.
I got one
It's my
question.
opinion. There you go.
I got one question.
I don't have to answer your question, sir.
Hey, no, seriously,
I don't
it's not about dead presidents.
Now we going on to the next topic.
not
I
about
appreciate
dead
y'all playing and having
Look,
this
now he
thing.
want to control the mic. Now he want to control the
Oh, man.
Full
Go
Metal
ahead, ask
Jacket.
your question. Full Metal
mic.
Jacket.
Dope,
Great movie.
dope.
That's what I think I was
Great
thinking
movie.
about instead of
Classic.
Platoon now.
Full Metal Jacket.
I was
Should've
thinking
been-
about Full
should've
Metal
been
Jacket
thinking
instead
about
of
that
Platoon.
instead of
Which
Dead
one was Let You Long Time?
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Black Man.
That was Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Full
That's
Metal
what I was
Jacket.
thinking of instead of Platoon. Full Metal Jacket. All right.
Yep.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that was a good movie
Cool.
too. Almost as good as Dead President, but it was a very good movie.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna go into we talked about PTSD and all this. What is your hype song that no matter how you feeling in life or whatever, if you had, you feeling down and you want a song to put on that's gonna pump you up and change your mood every time you hear it, no matter where you hear it, what would that song be? Now we're gonna go ahead and skip Sergeant Garrett out of this because we don't appreciate
Look,
his.
I don't know.
'Cause
Since
he's
the
gonna-
person
he's
who
gonna
said
be
Dead
like-
Presidents for a military movie.
He's he might he's gonna pick something like I don't know, something from Little Mermaid or something. I have no idea. So
Don't talk about no Mermaid.
yeah,
The movie was great.
anything
Don't talk about
anything
the
that
Little Mermaid. The Black
has a
Little Mermaid
Academy
was great.
award is going to be his choice. So but no, we're going. Who wants to go first? I mean, I'll go first. You know what? Since
Gotcha.
y'all boo-hoo,
I got mine.
so I'm gonna go first.
Yeah.
Oh, you got yours? Jimmy, go
All right,
ahead and go
me,
first.
man. You know, I've been in the music box for decades and decades, man. So I gotta preface it though, because I don't really get hyped no more. Like when I do, like now it's very few and far between. So I would say like right now, my hype song is So Laid Back because of where I'm at in my space. It's actually the first song from King's Disease 2 by Nas, because I think those 3 albums and that Magic album are classic. I think, especially when we talk about mental health, growing as Black men, impacting our communities, building financial wealth, getting our mind right. That first song is Pressure, because it talks about, the pressure on his back, and what he's doing for himself, what he's doing in his community. I'm not going to try to say and recite the lyrics, but if you haven't listened to King's Disease, the whole collection, listen to the whole collection, but specifically go to King's Disease 2, listen to the first song, especially from a mental health aspect. Like, bro, that song that's what I start my day with. That's what I drive home to. That's what I listen to when I get my mind right, figure out what's my next power move gonna be. Now, when I just want to be a 20-something-year-old delinquent, I'm putting on Ambitions of a Rider by Tupac, and I'm just cranking that joint as loud as I can.
That's the good
You
one.
know what I'm saying? Because it ain't not one song you could give me that let everybody know that I just got shot 5 times and I'm about to come over and take over everything, or y'all gonna have to kill me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So everybody else's songs that came out, all 50s Get Rich or Die Trying, and everybody else who came out.
Don't bring up 50. We don't bring up 50 on this podcast. We don't
I'm
bring
just
up
saying,
50.
all of these other rappers that came out from a resilient standpoint, remember that was Pac coming back after getting shot 5 times and after being locked up. That Ambitions of a Rider, you listen to the words in that song, he let everybody know I'm coming for y'all. Throat. Unfortunately, he got killed behind most of the stuff he said on that album.
Yep.
But,
Yeah, it
you
did.
know, and the way he was living. But nah, man, King's Disease, man, is the most resilient music that you can listen to if you anywhere close to 40 years old this day and time, if you respect hip hop. So if y'all haven't done it, go get it.
All right. Who wants to go next? I'll go next. Don't worry about it. Let's go ahead and so I had to narrow it down to one song, and it was a lot of songs I went through that throughout different stages of my life that I could have picked, especially back to like Tupac and this, that, and the other during that time. But I had to pick one song that right now I know if I listen to it, anytime I listen to it, it hypes me up, and that is "Dreams and Nightmares" by Meek Mills. And that,
Okay.
I don't know, because every time, hold on, wait a minute. That every time that part happens, like if I'm upset, Captain and Lieutenant, I just start bouncing. I just can't help it. I just start getting right with the song. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
So
have you ever seen it? Have you ever
been-
seen a high school? Have you ever seen a high school gymnasium? Listen to that. Like they come out
Yeah.
to our basketball team come out to that. Oh my man,
That
them
joint
little
crazy.
kids be. Hey, look, and they parents be looking around like, how you know all the words, but you get the daggone D in your English class.
Hey, yo, that joint right there, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is about that song, but it don't matter when I hear it, where I hear it, every time. As soon as the beat start and you know, he's talking in the beginning, I start getting psyched just waiting on that part. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah,
as soon as
man.
it was ready, I was like, oh, yo, every time I'm getting psyched just talking about it. So, you know,
That's
yeah,
what's
so
up.
that's mine. That's mine. All right, anybody who next?
Yeah, I'm torn between two, right? So, like, if I'm gonna get hype, you know what I'm saying? Like, my young self is gonna say I'm about it, flat out.
Yeah.
My young
But I
self
gotta
is
be
gonna
with my crew though.
I gotta be with my crew.
I
But
can't be by myself listening to about it. I'm gonna be. You know what I'm saying? I gotta be with Rodney. I gotta be with everybody because we used to go crazy on that song.
right? But if I'm by myself, and y'all gonna laugh at this one, it's a Biggie song. Niggas bleed just like us.
Oh yeah, niggas
Okay.
bleed just like us.
That
Yeah,
joint makes
that's
me
good.
feel like, yo, I am
Hey.
invincible. Like, what makes you think you better than me?
Oh,
I ain't gonna laugh at that.
Yeah, I ain't gonna laugh at that. That's a vicious joint right there. Yeah, bleed just like us.
Yeah,
Hey,
I got it.
let me throw two honorable mentions out there. So one,
okay.
nobody liked the Dre back in the day because my man, and now I will tell y'all disclaimer, I'm the biggest Nas stan fan, whatever you want to say, right? But one song that nobody really liked back in the day because everybody was still jocking Jay-Z, plus my man had on like the red jumper with the fire and everything. But go back and listen to Hate Me Now with some real
Hate
shit.
Me Now is a classic, son.
Hey, dog. The lyrics in that joint are sick, man.
Yeah.
They are
That was like the first ether. That was the first ether for real.
So,
go back and listen to that, Joe, and have a problem at work. Or listen to that one day when you don't want to go to work. Oh, that's gonna give you some resilient emotions. I'm telling you, you going up, you walking up at work like this.
What? You know, I had another conversation with somebody else, and we talked about perfect songs. And Hate Me Now was brought up. And at that time when it came out, the vibe and everything that was said right there during that time was just monumental. It was a great life-changing song.
My man don't get no credit because Made You Look is another perfect song
too.
Yeah, it was perfect song. There's no errors in that song. But that's another podcast because you know I can sit here and talk Nas all day.
Yeah. All right, fellas, well, it's late. We're gonna go ahead and skip
I do got one for you. I do got one for you. So like, the only time I really need to get hype is when I'm about to like perform or do something, or I'm just working out. I don't feel like working out. So the song that is number one on my playlist is "Long Live the Chief" by Jadena.
I'm familiar.
I've heard that.
They played that joint on Luke Cage, man, when Cottonmouth was up.
It was on Luke Cage. Yep.
Yeah.
So
and then right after that, you go into Bambi, right? Bambi,
and that song is fire though. Because being the chief in the army, hey, I used to play that in the morning when my guys come to work.
Long
live the chief.
Yeah, I used to listen to that because I was the flight chief, and so that was I was that Long Live the Chief.
Okay, I'm messing with them. All right.
All
right, fellas. Hey, it was a great show. I appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day and joining us here at Dad Mentality. Man,
a pleasure.
You know, I really needed this show this week. It was something that I had on my mind that was, you know, like I said, things that happened this week that kind of bothered me. But you know what? God always finds a way. And this show turned out to be a very, very good show that I'm proud of. So I want to keep it that way. And thank you fellas for joining me. You know, we're definitely going to get back together on some more topics. I appreciate as much as I can mess with my Sergeant Jamil Garrett about his music choices, you know, his opinion and the things that the knowledge that you express on our show is invaluable. And I really appreciate you taking that time. And also my man, Amelia Graham, Jimmy, I appreciate you taking the time, giving, you know, your message and talking about the personal things that you talked about today. Vance, you know, I appreciate you coming in and joining with me. And I just want to say, you know, thank you. The Dad Mentality also, you can catch us on all platforms. I'm about to get off this show and hop on Twitch right now and get some kills on Warzone. So if you want to see me on there, you know, it's the Beast One on Twitch. And also you can email us at dad_mentality. You can catch us on all platforms. Thank you all for joining us this week. This is the Beast One, the Dad Mentality. God bless and good night.